Good evening. Thank you for coming to tonight's Artist and Artist Lecture. Since its inception, this really has become a beloved series, not only for those of us that work at DIA, but also for the community. It's just a really wonderful opportunity for us to gain more insight and perspective on the artists in our collection, and to do so through contemporary artists and artists that we love is always such a wonderful opportunity for us to learn more about the process of making art and also practice. And since its inception, which was in 2001, many years ago now, we've hosted almost 80 lectures. So we've had such a wonderful, rich history, and hopefully soon we might have some of those on our website. And I can't really say when, but I'm hoping soon. But it's really been a wonderful and rich history, and that history, of course, is also documented on our website if you ever had any interest to look back. I'm Kelly Kivlin. I'm the assistant curator here at DIA. And like I said, it's really, truly a pleasure to welcome you this evening for Jonathan Monk's lecture on Boetti. I also just wanted to give a couple of thank yous to those that support the program. We're thrilled that this program is made possible in part with public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. We're also thankful, of course, to Brooklyn Brewery, who's been longtime supporters of our public programs. And of course, they're the ones that provide the beverages this evening that we all get to enjoy. And thank you as well to all my amazing colleagues here at DIA that sort of synchronize under the radar all of the components that make the Artist and Artist series possible. Finally, I would like to extend my gratitude to the artist Jonathan Monk, whom it is a pleasure to introduce this evening. Born in 1969, Monk was raised in Leicester, England, a city located within the countryside of the East Midlands, about 2 hours north of London. He grew up without television, therefore books and film were a paramount source of inspiration in his youth. After graduating from the Glasgow School of Art in 1991 and carrying forth his somewhat unmediated upbringing, Monk's early work often addressed his personal history and references to English popular culture, such as the work called Making Work, a performance-turned-document from 1994, in which he invited friends to gather in a pub, and part of the course for such a setting, those that gathered were served beer that was topped up, and made it possible for it to spill on canvases that were acting as tablecloths, more or less. Afterward, these canvases became part of an installation that was, I think, first installed or only installed at the Statens Museum for Kunst in Copenhagen in 1998. Towards the end of the 1990s, he also began developing work that started to embrace appropriation as means to challenge authenticity in art, as well as somewhat of looking at the value of authorship in art. A prominent source of inspiration has been to take on conceptual artwork and strategies for those artists that were making work in the 1960s and 1970s. Yet this turn in his practice still brought forth the cleverness of his earlier work. Aptly, some have said his work pairs, quote, a conceptual approach with a wry wit and a certain down-to-earth sensibility. Interestingly, Jonathan has made work that has engaged with many artists in DIA's collection, including the 16mm film projection titled A Cube Soloist Photographed by Carol Hubner, using 9 different light sources and all their combinations front to back to front forever. And his work, Dancing with Gerhard, a photographic work made in 1995 which depicts Jonathan dancing in front of 2 gray monochrome Gerhard Richter paintings, similar to the ones on display at DIA Beacon. Speaking of his referential practice, Jonathan once said, quote, at this time, and still now, I realized that being original was almost impossible, so I tried using what was already available as source material for my own work. I always think that art is about ideas, and surely the idea of an original and a copy of original are 2 very different things. A prime example of such feelings is evinced in his ongoing textile series, The World In, such as the 2011 work, The World in Stars and Stripes, of which the images accompanies the event listing on our website. The World In series takes as starting point the Mappa tapestries made by Boetti in the 1970s, in which each work in Monk's series is constructed with a patchwork design that mimics the maps of the world. The influence of Boetti on Monk's practice has been vital, and to illustrate this, he has published 2 artist books, Winged Mirror in 2005 and From A to B and Back Again in 2011. both which position his work in relation to Boetti. When asked about Boetti's impact on his practice, Monk has said, Alighiero made conceptual art more human and perhaps less complicated. His influence is as strong today as it has always been. Before I conclude, I'd also want to make sure to mention that this September, we'll all have the opportunity to experience Monk's work again in New York City when he opens a solo exhibition at Casey Kaplan Gallery in New York. And without further ado, I'd like to now introduce and welcome Jonathan Monk to tonight's lecture.
Lost my notes. I'm not sure actually after that I really need to say anything. But I seem someone's taken my I did have here they go. Here we are. Do you hear that? Yeah. That's the chair. When I sit down it makes a funny noise. You probably can't hear. But anyway, thanks very much for coming tonight. I noticed someone here is actually knitting something for me. Or crochet. Is that knitting or crochet? Knitting. That's nice. Well, I'm here now to speak about Alighiero Boetti. And firstly, thanks very much Dia, for inviting me to come. It seems like a long way to come to speak about someone like this, but it's a great pleasure anyway. I did worry I'm not reading this, but what did I say? I did worry for a number of months about what I would actually do and say this evening. And now I guess I'm not quite so worried, but still unsure about how it's going to pan out over the next while. But I did make some notes, which I can start with. It is a great pleasure for me to be here to discuss the multidisciplinary work of Alighiero Boetti. I struggled for some months before sitting down and composing this text. This is the first time I have been encouraged to actually speak about another artist's work directly. I often discuss the works of others within my own work, but not normally in this kind of formal setting we find ourselves in today. And then I decided that it wasn't going to be so great to kind of read directly from a text, so I've written a few things down, but I'm not really going to refer to them. I might have to come back to them once in a while to get names and dates in the correct order, but otherwise I, as often do, found images from books. Two of which I have here that I've published, and other books of Boetti's that have been really important to me. So I don't know whether it's so important to know that Boetti was born in 1940 in Turin in northern Italy, and he died in 1994 in Rome, in southern Italy. But in the meantime, or during his lifetime, he traveled far and wide. And here he is in, I guess, the mid-60s. I'm only guessing, I'm not exactly sure when this photograph was taken. But what I decided to do that might be more interesting, or at least easier for me, is to go from a text and then talk to you about how I piece together the lecture in a way. More than what it somehow is. I try to avoid talking about myself, which would then make it far too easy. So I just hopefully bounce back and forth between Boetti and Jonathan Monk. Boetti in Turin was heavily involved with Arte Povera, I guess from the mid or late 60s until 1972. Where he sort of distanced himself from it and moved to Rome. But this was him, or this is a work of mine, actually. It's funny I'm looking at this and you're just looking over my head, so we don't actually have to look at each other, which is quite good. So this is a work of mine. It's a picture that I found of Boetti playing the drums. I mean, he was a percussionist, And we'll go back into that later. And this is just something that I made by... I had the photograph printed, and when it returned, it was rolled up. And to keep it flat, I needed to put something on it to flatten it. And I used 11 spray cans. And the number 11 will come back into the discussion later on. And this is how it was installed. It's funny that I start about my own work when I was trying to avoid that. But anyway, this is how it was first installed, with these symbols. Because this is Boetti's drum kit that I actually photographed in Geneva some years ago in a museum. I'm not actually quite sure why the work is in a museum, but anyway, it's kind of interesting. It's not a drum museum, it's a contemporary art museum, but anyway, he collected drums and cymbals from all over the world. From wherever he traveled, he tried to bring something back. This is him, I think, in his band that he had in Turin, and he took it very seriously at the time, and they really did have a small repertoire of songs that they attempted to make records, but apparently never did. Again, images of photographs that I took. You can see there, that's my stomach at the bottom, or at least my jumper that was covering my stomach. Here he is again. And this was I think, the guitarist in the band, an artist called Salvo, also involved in Arte Povera at that time. And I guess historically, music and the art world has been intertwined wherever it might be it Italy or New York or London or Glasgow. This is a work by Salvo that I actually am fortunate to have in my small collection. It's a double-sided print that says Salvo è vivo, Salvo is alive, and on the other side it says Salvo, I'm not exactly sure in Italian, sorry, but Salvo is dead. So when I hear that Salvo has died, I have to turn it round. So a lot of these kind of, this work dealt with this life and death in the early, I'm probably sweating. I'm sure the photographs are not going to look very good. I guess we can Photoshop like I've done. But this is a two-panel piece that Boetti made where he... this is the 16th of December. No, this is 20 years after. No, now I'm mixed up exactly what work this is, because he'd made a piece where it was his birthday, which was in 1940, and when he thought he was going to die, he imagined this... the date of his death being 2023. But this isn't exactly the work. See, I told you it would be slightly confusing, because I'm not even sure of the images myself. But as you can see, this is quite nice, taken from a book. It's two square panels that, due to the curvature of the page, now look completely different. Again, Boetti playing the drums. We spoke about this earlier on, about the idea of selecting and choosing images, and how easy it is now to do that with, I guess, contemporary technology, which allows you to just pull things off the internet. So I tried here for this evening to combine this by getting good pictures and not so good pictures, and pictures that I'd taken myself, and images of things that were taken from books or from we were given by galleries. So Boetti and Arte Povera. This is something that was, hopefully you all know the ideas about Arte Povera. Has anyone heard of that before? Okay, that's good. So it was, there was a lot of people involved, mainly Italians, using poor material to create a new way of looking at things, and a new sculptures mainly, actually. So Boetti in Turin in the, I guess, late 60s, very early 70s, was clearly involved in this idea. I'm not sure that sort of thing exists anymore, that people were kind of pigeonholed quite so tightly as they were before. But anyway. So it's a lot of things. This is made of corrugated cardboard, just a roll of cardboard, where he created a tower from pulling the center out of the roll. An installation, I think, that was probably in Milan. Again, none of the dates I have here. It was just a way of killing time, actually, to be quite honest, to make it seem like I knew more about this period than I actually do. So this is the annual lamp in English. It's a piece that is supposed to, we are told, light for, I think, 11 seconds each year. But no one's actually seen it lit. There's a kind of what looks to be a very elaborate form of electrical, I guess, timers or something that's, I think it actually, to be honest, it doesn't really light, but we're led to believe that it does light, whether it be in the storage or when the gallery is closed, but no one's ever seen it lit. Or this is actually called Nothing to See, Nothing to Hide. It's just a big window. Here you see it. I'm not exactly sure where this is installed, but just a grid where it's a bit, I guess, like an invisible canvas that we just see through. Here again. And this is a series that I made recently, which is called Something to See, Something to Hide. And it's, again, it's a grid, but this is with a photograph of the curtains my parents had in their house, I think before I was born. So probably at the same period as this, my parents had this on their window. So I made a work where it was a kind of window again, but half of it was covered in the classic kind of, I guess, British way of like, I don't know, hiding things with curtains. And it also looked a little bit for me like an American abstract painting from the 50s, probably. And the white marks on there were made by my parents as they used the curtains as a drop cloth much later on. So they used that as they painted the skirting board in our living room. So Boetti was involved in all of the kind of classic Arte Povera exhibitions from that period, and also When Attitudes Become Form and Documenta 5. This Documenta 5 catalogue I actually found in a flea market in Berlin. It was one of these moments that doesn't happen very often, where I was fortunate to be able to buy this for 15 euros, which I think now it's a bit more than that. But it's nice. It's a nice little catalogue. And inside there's one of Boetti's maps that we'll speak about later, and other artists that I hadn't actually seen this picture, only ever seen it in black and white, of, I forget his name, someone I'm sure remembers here. I'll remember in a minute when I find another. You see, look, I was going to look up the list that I'd created here, which is not on. Thank you. So this was a piece of Boetti's that I actually also have a copy of this, fortunately. Somehow did a trade with an Italian gallery. Galleries in Italy are very open to doing trades with, not necessarily with me, but with other artists. So this was it's a piece of Boetti's that there he is, looking and pointing at his own name. But he created symbols for each artist. So I always think when I'm pointing at the screen here, you can see my finger, but you clearly can't. Okay, right. So for each artist, or following the lines after the artist names, there was a symbol. And these symbols meant something to Boetti. And the meanings of each symbol was given to a notary that was to keep it secret until after Boetti's death. But apparently it's still, as Boetti died 20 years ago, the secret has still been kept. So no one knows exactly what comes behind Paolini or Fabbro or any Osorio or any of the artists. So we're not exactly sure what Boetti thought of his fellow Arte Povera artists. Again, another piece that I'm not exactly sure of the title. So here we are in Turin, or actually this is a dish towel that I bought in Turin, photographed in my studio. These are my shoes on the right here. And on the left, there's more cloths that I've been making works with. But anyway, Turin, famous for the Fiat there at the bottom, the Cinquecento. But the symbol of Boetti is this mole, the tower here, which Boetti often used, taking postcards of his home city and sending them from wherever else he was in the world, kind of taking with him this part of Italy and sending it from wherever he was. It's my hand. Now you can see my hand. See how I have it on the screen there? It's incredible. It's kept totally still. And I was actually in Turin last Thursday. I took this photograph of the tower because I'd made a work where I'd planned. I've made the series of meetings where I plan to meet someone, whoever it might be, the person that's actually stupid enough to agree to the idea of meeting me, has this on their wall, the text, and then normally it's like at least a 10-year period ahead into the future that they have to wait to meet me. So then I was there I think the meeting was Thursday of last week. I was there at midday, exactly in this spot, and met the person that owns the work. Here's Boetti, another work of mine, actually. It was an invitation card of his for a show in Sperone in 20 days after I was born, which is kind of strange. But here I made this piece where I just enlarged the invitation card and kind of pinned on a Juventus football scarf, which is also black and white, and it looks a little bit like he's cheering for Juventus. That's the team from Turin, football team. Here's another football, a kind of hero of mine from, I guess this is Paul Gascoigne, who was from Newcastle in England, but played football at one point in Rome. So it's kind of also a northern creative midfielder moving to southern Italy, similar to, here he is again, to Boetti. I always see Boetti as being kind of one of the fifth member of the Beatles. You know, this kind of northern Italian or northern European being involved in kind of Eastern spiritualism at some point. And I don't know, as a drummer, he could have been, I guess, instead of Ringo Starr, who wasn't actually a very good drummer either. There's more drums, strangely enough. This is the exhibition that I saw in Geneva at the MAMCO. And behind the drums is what Anne-Marie Suso Boetti, Boetti's first wife, here, the card of which I stole from, I didn't really steal, it was left behind and I just took it with me from another event very similar to this, where she was introducing an exhibition catalogue that was made for a show in Paris. I happened to be there and I took this with me. So she'd written a book, I think in, after he died, she was decided that it was important to document, or at least write and document, the life of her husband. So she wrote this book, Shame and Showman, and talks very much within it of this piece, which again is not really an artwork as such or an installation. It's more a collection of images and works of Boetti's and works of other artists and things that he appreciated. So it's I guess like a sketch pad, or I don't know. I guess now it would be like an Instagram. I'm not sure what's it called when you have Instagram? An Instagram something? Any young people? Anyone under? Sorry? Feed? Okay, it would, sorry. Can we rewind the tape a little bit? Okay, an Instagram feed, it would be where you just have pictures that you like and you're influenced by and you want everyone to see. So this was really, he called it the wall, and it followed him around wherever he went. Apparently works would come and go and things were accepted onto the wall and would stay there for a number of years and then would go to an exhibition and maybe not come back, and then would be replaced by other works. So it was really a mixed collection of different things. A lot of works of his, a lot of photographs of him in different countries, and paintings by friends, and bits and pieces. Here, this is like a nice intro. I guess it's a piece of, I don't know, wallpaper or packing paper to a work of mine. Kind of nice intro there. This is called All the Possible Combinations of 8 Legs Kicking. I mean, a lot of Boetti's work was about combination and sort of mathematical workings of how things could piece together and how you could work not so complicated formula of how things were forced against each other and pushed to move. So this is really, it's a work that lasts for like 27 days for the combination of 8 legs to kick. And it really does just go through these, I'm like, no, that's trying to make it look as if I'm animating the legs, but they move, and every time that it's moving, it's a different combination of 8. Of which Boetti worked through with using stamps and how stamps would, there's probably a picture on the wall just here. If I point, I need to stand. This is the combination of 3 different stamps. But if you move to 8, you get a lot more. Here like this. If I do it quickly, it looks really... Oh, sorry, that's the wrong way. And this was another work of Boetti's where it's kind of dueling, or the kind of reflection from one side to the other. This being like a double, I guess it's a banjo. It's a kind of instrument that you can't really play, but it, and I'm not sure it even exists. It only really exists as this photograph, of which I used to make another work where I used feathers to make eyes for Boetti. So it was again that this doubling from here, then here. I think this was also, whether this was slightly after, it must have been in the early 70s. Like he'd kind of walked away from Arte Povera and had decided from the wall that work should be, or if possible, mainly flat, 2-dimensional on the wall, or to see within on the page, rather than sculpture that I guess predominantly work from Arte Povera was sculpture. So he, had made this, everything was kind of going to be flat then. So this is a piece of his called Gemini Twins, which I think is we can add that after to the text, but I think 1972, but I'm guessing. Another picture of it. So I decided within the the discussion, that I would just kind of take things that for me fitted together and how I could make some vague sense to being in New York or being in this situation that I find myself now. So I kind of worked how I could make twins here, and this became the kind of, I guess sadly, the symbol of 11, which was Boetti's favorite number, again due to the dueling or the reflection of the self. And at a certain point, I can't remember exactly what year he decided to do this, but he decided to add an E between his names. So he became Alighiero E, which is and Boetti. So he also became kind of two people at that time. So I don't know, it made sense, or up to a point I saw a logic of using this idea of the Twin Towers and other works that Boetti had made, and knowing his kind of influence and the importance of Afghanistan in his project. So I don't know, it was difficult to see how I could make it work within the discussion, but anyway, I'm trying my best right now. So it was really, these things, it just sort of made sense for me at that time to think of Boetti was in Afghanistan quite often, like almost half the year, from 1972 until the Russians invaded in 1979. So it somehow made sense, or not sense, it's like, it makes no sense. But anyway, the September the 11th, and then Afghanistan is invaded by America. Although I think this is probably in Palestine, but anyway. And it's not only America that has trouble, so. But it just made, there was a logic to it. And it was, again, this is a work of Boetti's from, I think, Arte Povera. But it was also something that there was kind of violent times, even all throughout the 60s and still now, clearly. This is a Warhol, but it's almost the same. But I think Boetti just literally went to the market, would buy the fabric, and Warhol printed it. So I think this is actually in, this is the Russian invasion from '79. So Boetti was making work in Afghanistan, Kabul mainly, throughout the 70s, and I think he left in 1979 and never went back from when the Russians were there between '79 and '89. And that was the end of his involvement directly with Afghanistan. He still worked with the same people that helped him create the maps, but they'd I guess fled or moved to Pakistan. This is in Geneva at the hotel I stayed in. I don't know, it just sort of made sense thinking about the maps. So this is, I guess, Boetti's kind of extended studio. He reintroduced this form of needlework to create a big series of works, a number of which are in the Dia collection of maps, or Mappa as they were known. Here are two. Basically, it's a kind of political map of the world with each country divided and coloured in its own flag. And I think what Boetti was fascinated about was the simplicity of the idea that he really had nothing to do with it. I mean, the way the countries were shaped was not, he didn't control that, he didn't control the colour of the flags. What happened was, though, over the course of making the series, which I think did start in '72 and finished when he died in '94, but I think some works were actually finished after his death. that borders would change and the colour of flags would change, which maybe we see at some point if Russia changes. We'll see. Oh. I'll just have a drink of water. What I didn't say earlier on is if you want to actually ask me any questions during the talk, I'd happily answer if I can. If they're easy enough, I can answer. I've also, just to encourage you to be brave enough to ask me, I know it can be quite intimidating, to ask me any questions. I've prepared a number of small artworks that I will give, because I know Boetti was very, very generous. I will give to anyone, well, not that many people, because I've only got like 7 or 8, but anyone that does decide they want to answer, or rather, well, maybe they'll have to answer as well. I don't know, I'm not going to watch. That's, although that could be quite a good question if you go back to this. Which actually documents the moment I took the photograph in every country of the world. It's really quite nice, isn't it? In Geneva, which is the home of a number of lavishly expensive watches. But nice question. I guess I have to. Okay, afterwards. Okay, good. So this is the series of Boetti maps, all made by the women of villages in I would say Kabul, but maybe in different parts of Afghanistan as well. He would take, I guess, huge rolls of canvas or folded up pieces of canvas that he'd drawn out the maps of, or the map of the world. But I would assume that most of these people that were making the work didn't actually know what the world looked like. So he kind of introduced the world to them and reintroduced, apparently, this type of needlepoint, this way of sewing. I mean, they traditionally had done it, but it had kind of fallen out of fashion. I don't know whether that's exactly true, but so
Sorry, if I could ask quickly, did he provide a picture of the artwork that he wanted sewn by these people, and they would use that as a guide?
I think what he did is he took the fabric, be it linen or cotton, I'm not exactly sure, with the world drawn out onto it. And maybe even the flag shape or the design of the flags. And then together with his studio assistants, they decided what color would work best with each flag. And I think this was, at the start, it was a lot of back and forth, and it took a long time for things to get from there to Italy. It might be 6 more months. They didn't like photograph and send a JPEG. Is this okay? Should we change the border slightly? I think it really was like a long process of back and forth over years to when they kind of finalized the design. And then when a flag might change color, he would change the color of the flag on the map, and then it would be changed for the next map. And I think the border that the people that designed or sewed the entire map would decide what was written around the edges. So I'm not exactly sure how many of these have been made, but I would... Sorry about that. I would assume hundreds have been made. I mean, it was, but what I think was interesting about this was that once the work was in process, it could be endless. It could still be being made now. It's not so important that it stopped when he died, because the world is still evolving. Things are still changing. So it's possible that the work could continue to be made. No doubt certain galleries have actually thought that might be possible. But I guess they did stop making them. But who knows?
Was he drawn to do this in Afghanistan because of the tradition of that craft there, or for some other reason about that?
I think what took him to Afghanistan initially is probably drugs. Although I'm not exactly sure about that, but it probably was that. But I mean, this was in the early 70s, I guess the East was a kind of magical place, and people traveled quite a lot, especially from Europe, where you could get there not easily, but it was possible to go, be it to Afghanistan or to India. And I think he probably realized that this was a craft that existed there, and then he slowly worked out how he could use that within his own practice. And once he'd found this system that was in place and found the workers that could help him, even children here, which clearly must be illegal, it was possible for him to do anything. It was mainly in Afghanistan, but I think once the Russians moved in, a lot of the work moved to Pakistan. So it was the same people and the same technique, but in a different country. Just because he couldn't go to Afghanistan to pick them up, it wasn't possible. Again here, and they're all different. Even though it's exactly the same, they're all different. Here you see Russia is sorry. Here Russia is traditional, pre-1989 or 90, and here the color changes. Not really. I have to say I don't know. But I think he did at one point, or over this long period from the early 70s until 94, he was employing like whole villages to help him do this. And it wasn't child labor, although it clearly was at some point. He was really, I think he really helped the people. I think he taught them things and learnt them again, or encouraged them to continue traditional skills that they had but had forgotten. Beyond that, I don't really know anymore. I mean, it's kind of...
Earlier, he actually doubled himself and established a hotel.
No, it's coming in a minute.
Okay, sorry, I just, people didn't notice that he just didn't send out the work to be done. He had a life in it.
Yeah. I mean, he really was there for long periods of time. He didn't just send a JPEG and wait for the work to arrive. He really, that's what we all do now, of course. But so this is actually a work of mine. It's quite dark up there. In reality, it's not quite so dark, but it's taken from a center spread, or a spread from a magazine where we it's just scanned, from a catalog, and then I reversed it, because you can do that now. So it's a bit like standing. It's a big carpet that was made not in Afghanistan but in Munich. This is the back of it. So I tried to make it look like you can't see it, it's the one picture that's quite dark, sorry. Like it still was from a book. So you can see the kind of pages and the folds. So I didn't hide anything. No, it's really a carpet. It's not it's on the floor and you walk on it. So it was a bit like walking on the inside of the earth. That's what I thought. That's why I reversed it. So you somehow felt sort of upside down, even though you were the right way round.
What does the border say, actually?
I don't know. We can all try and read it together. A lot of it's Arabic. I don't know, I'm afraid. I should know, clearly. It says Alighiero I Boetti Is there an Italian here? Something? There's time.
Sorry, some of the letters are so hard to count.
You can't see it there.
But the word time is repeated.
Yeah, it's time. Yeah, of which time was very important to Boetti as well. But again, that'll come in a minute, if with time. So this is it being finished off. I mean, it was mainly made on a machine, and then they finished. This is behind the map, or the carpet, the back of the carpet. They finished parts of it that way. And then I made this whole series, as Kelly mentioned before, the world in. This is the world in jeans and T-shirts. So literally, jeans and T-shirts. The C being jeans and the T-shirts being T-shirts. Here a detail of Europe and North Africa and part of the Middle East, Turkey. Look, Germany's like Ralph Lauren. It's quite nice. And then I made two of these, like the world in stars and stripes, which was just the world, again, made in the American flag. And this is actually, I'd made a lot of the maps, and the person, Rebecca, here she is, who helps me, or actually makes them. She doesn't help me, she does them, she makes it all. I don't really do anything. She sews them for me. We had lots of material left over, including some flags, so I propose we try and make like the USA made from the leftovers of other worlds. So it was all the other maps that I'd made with ties and handkerchiefs and bits of T-shirt, bits of flowery material to create the United States, which in a way sort of made sense as, I guess, America is somehow, not all of it, but a lot of it is the rest of the world sort of coming here. Can I say that as an Englishman? This is a map that I made of Africa in black fur. And you can't really see from here, but it's really every country is cut out and glued in place. With a detail, you can see the borders in between it. It was part of a series where I wanted to make each country or each continent in something that sort of made sense at the time. But it also looks like, I don't know, an album cover from the 80s. So here's exactly the book that I'm holding in my hand, which was somehow, when I first read it, it's quite anecdotal, but really sort of an insight into an artist's practice that you wouldn't necessarily get from a regular catalogue. Written by his first wife, who did go with him for the first time to Afghanistan in 1972, I think. There have been a number of different publications. The one on the left, the blue one, is the Italian version, which for some reason I have as a bit of a book collector. And the one on the right is the published by Koenigs in, I think, 1995. But this is what it says on the last page of the book, that we could all read out together, or I can just read it as well. Alighiero Boetti asked that his ashes should be dispersed at the earliest opportunity over the lapis lazuli water of the lakes of the Bandi Amir, 7 lakes in 7 craters, high in the desert mountains of western Afghanistan. So I read this, having not ploughed through, because it's quite a quick read, but very interesting read. And this struck me as something really quite poetic, that this is where he he'd found his spiritual home, and this is where he wanted to be, which in color looks quite nice, no? So I had this idea, having read this, that he was actually there, his ashes scattered and intermingled within the landscape, the sand of northwestern Afghanistan. So I decided that it might be interesting to try and document him, the person, within the landscape. So I employed, I need to read his name somewhere, Mustafa Shahbadzada. That's probably not how you pronounce it. Shahbadzada. Someone that we, by chance, found in Kabul to go to northwestern Afghanistan and make 5 Super 8 films of the landscape for me, thinking that I would somehow see Boetti hidden within. So I sent by FedEx, I'm not sure you can do that now, but I sent cameras, disposable cameras, and a Super 8 camera, and 5 Super 8 cartridges in a shoebox to Kabul. And they found him, and he went on this journey, which is quite far, and made these films and documented the journey for me, photographing people and places along the way. That's his head. So within the journey, and that all went together to make a series called Untitled and Unfinished. Again, knowing that he wasn't actually in Afghanistan and is still in Rome. I think Italian law doesn't allow you to remove the remains of an Italian citizen. But at some point, according to his son, Matteo, and an interview that I did with him, they will take his remains at the earliest opportunity. I think at the moment it's still quite difficult to travel there. But what was nice is that there was a 3rd edition of the same Shaman Showman publication where Anne-Marie asked me if it was possible to show pictures from my series. So this being where the Taliban blew up the Buddha, ancient Buddha that was in this kind of space that we see. Sorry about that. The book that had influenced the work, the new publication of that book actually printed the work within it. So I thought it was this really nice circle of the thing that had influenced my work appearing in the book again. This was the catalogue that I made for the exhibition of this Untitled and Unfinished called Winged Mirror that was at the British School at Rome in 2005, I think, in which we show images. The reason why it's called Winged Mirror is because in a number of the pictures I was sent, the actual wing mirror of the car appears. So it just made sense to call it Winged Mirror. It was somehow poetic as well, but also logical. So here's the one hotel. As we can see, Boetti did open and run with different people a hotel in Kabul. I think it was where he stayed when he was there, and other friends that would come from all over the world, artists or different people that he had invited, all got to stay within his hotel. This was him, a page of, it's also appearing in this publication, Shaman Showman, of him working out what he was going to call the hotel. So him sketching out ideas for the name of the hotel. And I decided at one point it might be nice to actually make a hotel called Lira Hotel, which actually within this looks like it might have been first or second choice at one point. So I actually have a kind of similar situation in Turin, Torino. You can see on the, I guess the right, Lira Hotel. So this is a project that I did. That's back to, I think that might be here. Could that be here? This is Mario Garcia Torres within his talk about Lira Hotel. It looks like it could be here. That we found it on the internet, but anyway. So I have this Lira Hotel in Turin where you can go to, you can stay. There are 4 rooms, all designed by artists, me being one of them. And you kind of invited, you buy a small addition and then you get to stay for free. It's a way of avoiding some kind of weird, maybe it's not weird, but some sort of odd Italian tax that we didn't want to pay. So this is, it's actually also number 11, which is quite sort of strange, and also by complete chance. This is also round the corner via Artisti. This is the room that I did for the hotel. This is a series of neons that I made because we need to somehow fund or hopefully fund the hotel and keep it running. So following on from Alighiero's 1 hotel, I made a neon that says 2 hotel. And when we sell 2 hotel for 2,000 euros, we make one that says 3 hotel. And we sell that hopefully for 3,000 euros. And that process continues until no one can afford to buy it anymore. But anyway, that's the idea. So it's just to keep the thing going, the whole idea of the hotel. Because it's not super easy getting people to stay there, even though it is really nice in the summer. I'm sure in the winter it's freezing cold. But I mean, I designed the couch here, which is also really nice. So if anyone's going to Turin, I can help you out. This is the carpet that I made, or a number of different carpets that I made. That it's simply using books on Arte Povera as a kind of stencil that I sprayed out. So it's made with a spray paint. And the shapes that now you can see the carpet through was where there was a book, or actually not a book, but the shape of a book made from cardboard. Again, back to the mole. This is actually the addition you get when you stay there. If you buy this for 100 euros, and we invite you to stay for free. It's quite nice. This is a series called the Collector's Leftovers that we found in Turin in a market where the collector, being a stamp collector, who had removed the stamp. So it's what he didn't want from the work. So I'm trying to sell his leftovers. Not sure why I included this picture. Again, it's something in Geneva. I just thought it looked sort of weird, like a shop that sold invisible books. I think Boetti would have appreciated it. This is when I was there, like last week, I found this little edition that he'd made for Alitalia. I guess the national carrier of Italy. And why I have a Sol-LeWitt book, and why it appears now. I think because I made a lot of works using Sol-LeWitt books. And I have this quite big collection of his publications, mainly artist books, or in fact only artist books. And I think it was through him that I went back and started looking at Boetti again. So I guess that's why they're there. So there's somehow this geometric figures and color, it just makes sort of sense. This is like order and disorder, a whole kind of series of magic squares. When Boetti found a text that would fit onto this kind of square of 16 individual, or 9, or I think they get much bigger depending, like here. And the numbers here were This might even be a Dia catalogue. I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's the one. Thanks for saying. But the numbers there, it's my daughter had done them, and I just kind of slipped it inside the book and put it back on the shelf. And then when I decided to take a photograph, it just seemed to make some kind of sense that it would be included. So he made these huge kind of tapestries or needlepoint series of text that would fit together using a magic square, or the number of letters and sides would always make sense in terms of their numbering. So anything with 16 or 24 or 9, and I think he would go through names and texts and statements or quotes by people that he appreciated and hoped that they would fit into his sort of logic. I found this on the internet and this is just a screenshot, but I quite like that the kind of the world was under copyright. So this is for a work of Boetti's that was at an auction, and I'm sort of interested when you think this is now selling, and probably did sell for more than $1 million maybe, or pounds or euros or something, $1 million of something, and that it was made by artisans in Afghanistan or in Pakistan. I mean, it's a little bit strange, that sort of logic, but I guess you can't really avoid it. But this kind of copyright thing, that it really was, I was interested in this, and following the archive that is trying to kind of establish this way of judging what is a Boetti and what isn't a Boetti. So I found this little advert that they'd put into Art Forum, and just asking any collector or anyone that has or wants to sell or owns a work that is thought to be Boetti to contact these people to double check. I'm not sure quite how they do that, but anyway, I took this sort of the text and actually made it into carpets. So there's I made 3 carpets. This one appearing in a publication, a Boetti publication. I thought there was another one somewhere, but and this it's dragging a little bit, no? I don't know how long it's almost an hour. No, it's not. When did we start? Jeez. Okay. I think it's not so long now. But anyway, Boetti, I can talk really quickly. You can get it over with. From 1974, I think, he made this edition of watches where he replaced the 12, 3, 6, and 9 with the numbers that made up the year of that particular year. This 1990 I actually own because I went to art school at that period and was living in Glasgow when it was the European City of Culture in 1990. So it was a specific moment for me. So I was quite happy to be able to again trade with an Italian gallerist this particular watch. And when it stopped working, I contacted the foundation to ask them what I should do. And they told me I should just go to a watchmaker to get it fixed and not to anywhere else. So again, a publication of Boetti's, of postal works. He made a lot of works that dealt with the post and chance, and whether things would arrive or wouldn't arrive, or how stamps could be fitted to an envelope to create a sequence or a logic. This one appearing on the wall that we spoke about earlier. It's a drawing by my daughter, a very not so young anymore artist. Well, she's nearly 13. And on the right, it's a book that Boetti had made called Classifying the 1,000 Longest Rivers in the World. And that's exactly what it is. It just lists, I guess, over 1,000 pages, the 1,000 longest rivers in the world, from the longest to the, not the shortest clearly, but you understand. Again, I'm not sure quite why this picture from my daughter appeared in the catalogue, but I thought you might like to see it. This is a work that I made here, actually, where I tried to, using Boetti's same system of stamps, post a letter to him in Rome, knowing that it wouldn't find him, or assuming it wouldn't, and that it would be sent back. What was odd with them, when we sent them from here, only one came back. None of the others left or returned. So that might mean they found him. I did again the same thing going from Germany that was returned, but from that, this one I didn't put a stamp on, so they just sent it back to me directly. I thought this is one of, I think there might be a photograph of it later, called The Missing Letter. So 6 letters were sent from Berlin to Turin, and only 5 came back. So that made me think that maybe one found him, even though he'd been dead for 15 years. But it was a nice kind of poetic idea that I thought made sense. So this is a series of postcard works that I've made called the Picture Postcard Posted from Postbox Pictured. So it's literally, if you were to buy this postcard, it would be sent from the postbox on the picture. So I've done this, that was New York, this is Mexico City, that's Toronto, that's Turin, that's actually in Wales, in Aberystwyth. So it's a long series of works that again deals with the logic of the post, if there is a logic. But it's the only thing you know is that the card that you receive, that I've written your address on and your name and signed, will come to you from that actual box that's on the picture. I don't know, I thought it was quite nice. So I'd again used, following the Boetti kind of logic of dates and years, I made this series called, I think the first one was 2006, but it's using these calendar pages that if you have any good questions later, you might even be able to take away with you. This one's called All the Nines in 2009 in Order of Appearance. So it's exactly what it says it is, and here's all the tens. I mean, all the nines is longer because I used, it's like 9, 19, 29, 9, 9. And tens, I just took the tens, so it got shorter, and some there's nines again. Is that twice? So this was the Boetti work. He did this every year as Christmas gifts, or I think a gift for the new year, where he, from the calendar, these pull-off calendars that we get in Europe, do you get them here? He created as many 1994s as he could from one calendar of 1994. Here 95, here 2014 that I did. And this, I think, was the last publication he ever made for a show that he did in Brussels. And it's a collection of letters that were sent to him. This is a book that I made called All the 11s in 2011 in Order of Appearance. And now I'm sort of rambling a little bit, so I feel that I was going to speak more about his the maps a little bit, or other works that he'd made in Afghanistan, and was wanting to think about the idea of studio practice, because his studio was very open, and he employed a lot of people to make work for him, be it in Rome or in Kabul or in Pakistan or anywhere, everywhere, or in France, or different places that he worked and different people that he employed, and how he worked, the kind of simplicity of it and the easiness. I think that's Andy Warhol, though. But again, it was a similar kind of thing. It was about being together with people and making work, not in this kind of alone in a studio, but opening up the ideas of how things could be made, be it bananas or maps of the world, or other things. It's the same kind of thing as using highly skilled craftspeople in Afghanistan or in New York or in LA. This is Ed Ruscha. I'm not sure that was his studio, but anyway, it's quite a nice picture of a Porsche and him. That's Rome. I'm actually moving to Rome. I live in Berlin at the moment, and we're going to live in Rome for a year, which is going to be nice. I don't know why this postcard, I kept it. It's like just badly printed. It looks like 3D, but it's just not very well done. But it's just the register is slightly off. That's back to making bananas. I just bought a table tennis table as well. So that's kind of... and that's in my studio, a photograph of Boetti, taken by, I'm just reading the name here, Elisabetta Catalano in 1972. And this is a small part of a sticker of Darth Vader that says the dark side underneath. That's the same picture in this book, with a little drawing of a flower by my daughter. It's quite nice. Again, they're classifying the 1,000 longest rivers in the world, 1977. This is the deluxe version with an embroidered cover. So if you know anyone that's got that and they want to sell it, you should contact me. But I think it's really expensive. So this is the third edition of the Boetti book here, which I appear in, which is kind of nice. Me and Maurizio Catalan. Huh? This is one of a series of paintings that I've done, again relating directly to I think that's they should have been here earlier. A series of paintings that I've done which try and position my work within the relationship to other artists. So this is a painting that should ideally be hung on the same wall as an Alighiero e Boetti. I'm just going to go through quickly now. I wanted to do half an hour, but it's gone on, hasn't it? How's the, what's it called again? Knitting. What is it? Socks? A bag? Container? But it hadn't a mobile phone. My daughter made a nice little one. So. This is a series of drawings that Boetti made that also follow a kind of complicated logic where it's really hard to read what they're actually saying because you have to piece together the lettering. So every time there's a comma, it relates back to the letter that's of the alphabet that's down the side. And they're all done in ballpoint pen. So they're all carefully drawn. People are leaving. They're all carefully drawn in lines like this. And they're very big. I think that's why I had the Warhol before. So this is a kind of Boetti quote of, he's drawn a moustache onto the Andy Warhol. So it's somehow related back to Marcel Duchamp and Warhol and Jackie Kennedy. So there's Warhol. And the A to B, when you think of Alighiero, Boetti, makes kind of sense, of which I used the same kind of typeface, or basically exactly the same for a little publication of mine. Amazing. It's like right there. The AB here I actually photographed on Thursday morning in a shop in Turin that also was just by chance. I think this is one of Boetti's last works. To be honest, I'm not even sure of the title. But it's a life cast of him holding a hose pipe. And I guess there's a heating element in the head. It's bronze that heats up, and then water is poured onto it, so steam comes from the top of his head. Where is that? I think it's in a number of different places. I actually saw it in Naples maybe 5 years ago, but I think it was first made for...
The exhibition is exposed on the corner.
Oh, was it here once as well? Okay, so it's been here. I think there is probably the 3 or 4 of them, or at least 2, you'd think, with Boetti. But I saw it in Naples, but I think it's actually from 94, maybe 93. And that's actually, I think, the last image. Unless you want, we can go through them really quickly. It's quite a lot of pictures. So this is Boetti. No, I think that maybe should be it, and I'm really very open with time. I know we've got a dinner sometime quite soon. No, I'm joking. That if you want to ask me any questions or at least say something, I'm
going to make an exhibition with your daughter's drawing one day, or?
If she'll let me. I don't know. I just keep these things in books and don't think about them and don't look at them for a long time, and then just stumble across them when I look at the book again. Yeah, maybe. I mean, she clearly probably wouldn't want me to do that, as she's now carefully drawing like Selena Gomez from magazines. She's 13 now, and when she did these, she was maybe 4. So it's like, whether she's happy to see them, I don't know. I guess she wouldn't mind. Depends on the context and what her dealer says at the time. I think she'd have to... Any questions? Oh, we were supposed to give a microphone, were we not?
I actually have one of your postcards from the post box. Thank you. It's really funny. It's a delightful piece to get in the mail. But I wondered if there was anything in your poking around that was a clue to why he was so peripatetic, and why he just seemed like he couldn't help but be a wanderer, or was it this poetic way of being for him? Or?
I think as much as anything, yes. I mean, he didn't stay in the same place for very long. I wouldn't know exactly why, other than what we can all imagine, that he just enjoyed moving around and was not happy in the same place for very long. And we can read into that whatever we want to, I suppose. I mean, within this book, I keep referring to it, he did, I think there was a long lost relation that had left Italy in the, I'd say 1700s, I'm not exactly sure, to become, I guess, a missionary somewhere in the Middle East. and moved back and forth between somewhere in India, I think, and Italy. So this was someone that he'd learned about and was fascinated by, and whether that sort of started his idea of movement and travel. Because I think when he was not able to go to Afghanistan, he tried to find an alternative, be it in Guatemala or in Ethiopia or in Morocco. So, I mean, he kept moving to try and find a new place that would fulfill his need or needs. But
the ancestor was actually initiated into a Sufi mystic order.
yeah.
So it wasn't proselytizing Christianity. It was kind of like a...
Well, he started as a Catholic missionary, but then he did change his belief. I didn't mention that, but thanks. So I get just to encourage, maybe discourage the... So that's it now for questions. Let's go. No, but if there's any more questions.
Just read back to his ancestor, Giovanni. I think he was called Giovanni Boetti.
Yeah.
Did he rescue or?
Sorry?
Is it in your work?
It's not really in my work. I mean, I don't like to travel. No, it's true. I mean, I do like to travel, but it's not something that's so important to me. I mean, a lot of people, or a number of different artists, have been to try and find the one hotel or go to Afghanistan. I thought it was too dangerous. I sent someone else. I mean, I didn't send... They were living there anyway, so it just felt easier. It's a little bit like the kind of Boetti in making the maps. If the system's there to be used, you don't need to be involved too much if you allow that to happen. I know a lot of artists, other friends of mine, that's an important part of their practice, to move around from place to place. But not that I like to stay at home, but...
Sorry, were you saying the original reason he went to Afghanistan was because of drugs, but once he got there, all these other aspects of his life developed?
Yeah, I mean, the whole drug thing I'm not actually too sure about, but I think that was the idea, or a little bit in the 70s, that people would kind of move around, be it in India or in Afghanistan or anywhere in the Middle East and the East, and find some kind of spiritual awakening. And I think but he found himself in Kabul almost by chance, but that became a reason for him to go back and forth. And to be honest, he didn't go there to look for people to make the maps for him. He just, I guess, stumbled across it. It was like, again, a bit back to Arte Povera. It was about just looking for things that you could use within your work. And if it made sense to be able to use a roll of corrugated cardboard to create something, you could use that same logic on anything, that it could push it to use embroidery, or what I'm doing now with this knitter that is part of it's part of tonight's project. I'm not sure exactly what she's making, but
I'm just wondering why people say they can include the drawings of your daughter. I think that probably is because you are interested in using the skills of someone else. But it's probably to have a better.
I mean, I'm certainly interested in using the idea, or being offered the chance to. I think there's even something here. To use the kind of work of. Yeah, look. That, I think, was maybe why I put them in here, the Boetti book, because the two almost the same. I mean, I haven't really thought about it, to be honest, but and it's not only in Boetti books that these things are kind of hidden, and it's not only drawings by my kids, but I think I'm certainly interested in this idea of allowing other people to make the work for me, a little bit. Not that this is a work of mine, but if I speak about it like this, it could be. And I have used something very similar to this before, where 2 images were made into photographs, and they were almost identical, and they were shown in 2 different rooms. So it was impossible to know whether it was the same drawing, just repeated, or 2 different ones. So I was just like that, again, the possibilities that these things give you. In the same way Boetti found the people that could help him make the maps initially.
You get a sense that everything's just sort of grist for the mill, and then things emerge, it's all being sort of devoured, and then things emerge and interests appear, but everything is being considered and used and touched and...
Yeah. Sure. I mean, really like that idea that you can make art from basically anything, and anything can be art, whether it makes sense or not. I like the idea that we don't really have to invent anything else, that we can just use what's already there.
Yeah, and then there's this sort of, all these things do connect and make sense. I mean, that's certainly what I saw in all of the things.
Okay.
Even things that make sense, but this is why.
Okay, no, that's good. No, I think, yeah. I guess you should get a drawing as well. Oh, yeah. They're running out. It's not really a drawing. Oh, oh, that's a good one. I'm allowed to say that. I haven't got any envelopes or anything to keep them up. Just fold them up and put them in your pocket. Any more questions? Okay, sorry.
Your idea about liking art that's made by someone else. If I ask you a question, can I have any one of the things up there?
Where?
Can I do it?
What would you like to choose? Any of the things here?
Made by someone else.
Sure.
Okay. I like the AM so
All right. But you didn't ask me a question yet. Was that the question? Any more? Any more for any more? Oh, you asked me a question as well, didn't you? Who? With the he's got one. He's not getting another one. Even though he did sort of ask me 2 questions, but I'm not sure. Okay. All right.
Regarding this activity that you have for creating all artist material, I recently read this book of all the process that Richard Prince had to go through because of the Rasta project. Did you have any sort of copyright or?
I think copyright issue only really becomes an issue if you're making as much money as Richard Prince is making. I think otherwise, what can they do? You can't really sue me. I guess you can, but you're not going to make much money. I mean, I think that's the only reason why Richard Prince or Jeff Koons get into trouble once in a while, because it's about money. And beyond that, I think it's also a little bit of a shame, but I've had awkward moments once in a while, but it's okay. That was a question? One more. I can't really look any more out.
Is there an implied critique in the fact that Jeff Koons is the one artist pictured this evening whose name was not pronounced until just now?
Did I not say?
As far as I remember.
Well, I think it's mainly because I assumed you knew who it was. But yeah, I mean, maybe. But it's the same sort of, I was just using it as an example of how, when you look at Boetti's work, you don't think of this mass production in the same way as we think of maybe Warhol or Koons. But it really was. There are thousands of these maps and other embroidered works. There were really people working full-time for years. And it's the same kind of thing. But I don't know. I'm not sure how it worked. I'm sure they were paid and well paid for their work, or relatively well paid. But it's sort of weird now when we know that they're changing hands for so much money. I think that's what's kind of strange, when they were made by these people that we don't know.
Well, as far as I know, there was a very elaborate network between Alighiero and Caterina, and I'm sorry I'm blocking on his name, the intermediary with a lot of travel within Afghanistan, including a very tragic accident later after Alighiero.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Did Boetti see it as a commercial enterprise, as an artist? How did he?
I don't think so.
Was he just paying the expenses, or?
I have no idea.
Or was it just all about the idea?
I would hope it was all about the idea, but I think there were certainly people involved in the one hotel that might never have been there. There were Italian collectors that helped fund the possibility of doing this. And I'm sure the galleries were waiting for the maps to arrive. But this was the 70s and 80s, or I mean the 80s is probably not the right thing to say, but certainly the 70s. It wasn't the same as it is now. I guess. I'm sure they sold, but I'm sure they were very cheap, which means they were very cheap to fabricate. But, yeah. And that was the... So that's it. Thanks very much for coming.